I've currently got the Aorus X5 V8 gaming laptop for testing, and I've seen a lot of people talking about thermal issues with it. I've noticed that it can run quite warm under load. Even with the fans running at full speed, power limit throttling and thermal throttling was happening. So let's take a closer look and find out if we can improve things with some undervolting. This laptop has Intel's new 8th generation Coffee Lake i7-8850H CPU, which has 6 cores with 12 threads and supports overclocking. By default it's clocked at 2.6 GHz, but the single core turbo boost speed is 4.3 GHz, while the all-core boost speed is 4 GHz. Out of the box, my unit was actually overclocked to 4.3 GHz on all 6 cores, so we're going to need good cooling to actually get good performance with this. By undervolting the CPU, we're essentially telling the CPU to use less power to perform the same tasks, and less power results in less heat. It's quite simple to do using Intel's Extreme Tuning utility, also known as XTU. Put simply, you slowly decrease the core voltage level, run a stress test to confirm stability, then once confirmed to be stable, you drop the voltage some more and repeat until you've got a stable system. If you take it too far, you'll blue screen in Windows if the CPU isn't getting enough power. With my Aorus X5, I was able to undervolt the 8850H by minus 0.150 volts. And this is what I used in my testing. Testing was done with an ambient room temperature of 18 degrees Celsius. It's approaching winter here, so expect warmer temperatures in a warmer environment. At idle, both the CPU and GPU sat below 40 degrees Celsius, otherwise it was running fairly warm. The gaming result in green was done by playing PUBG at high settings with the fans on default speeds. The yellow bar just above this was also from playing PUBG, but with the CPU undervolted and CPU overclocked on all cores to 4.4 GHz and GPU overclocked by 120 MHz. Undervolting the CPU alone was enough to drop the temperatures a little even while overclocked, and we'll see how this affected clock speeds in the next graph. Full load was tested with Ada64 and the Heaven benchmark running at the same time, and with the fans at both default speed or maxed out, the temperature was the same, as the fans were very close to full speed already, but you'll hear this for yourself shortly. Finally, the purple bar is the same stress test but with undervolting and overclocking applied, and we can see that this gave us just a slightly better GPU temperature. At 90 degrees, the CPU was thermal throttling. It didn't go above this and the clock speeds suffer as a result. Here are the average clock speeds while testing so you can see any throttling. While gaming with PUBG at stock settings, no throttling was observed. We can see all CPU cores averaged around 4 GHz, which is the all-core turbo speed of the 8850H. While overclocked, all cores ran just under 4.3 GHz, despite having them set to 4.4 GHz in this test. And this appeared to be due to power limit throttling. This was improved a bit with the undervolt though. In the stress tests, there was some thermal throttling taking place, even with the fans on maximum. Despite this, undervolting the CPU did still improve things quite a bit. As shown in red, the CPU cores were around 500 MHz faster as a result of the CPU undervolt, and only just barely throttling. If the GPU load was removed completely, the CPU temperature would drop quite a bit, into the low 80s. These are the clock speeds I got while just running CPU-only stress tests. Without the undervolt, the CPU was power limit throttling rather than thermal throttling. Thermal throttling was only happening with both a combined CPU and GPU workload. Undervolting the CPU not only dropped the temperatures as shown earlier, but also reduced the power limit throttling, resulting in the higher clock speeds shown here, so it's helping out in more than one way. I did attempt GPU undervolting, but I wasn't able to see any noticeable difference. I tried starting with small changes, then larger using MSI Afterburner, but it didn't seem to be helping. As for the external temperatures where you'll actually be putting your hands, at idle the body of the laptop is sitting in the low 30s, so it's quite cool. While gaming, this increases to about 44 degrees and is a little warm to the touch in the center, but it's not too bad. And I saw a very similar result while running the stress tests. However, the wrist rests and right side of the keyboard stayed fairly cool in comparison, and I didn't really notice any differences with the undervolt or overclocking applied. As for the fan noise produced by the laptop, I'll let you have a listen to some of these tests. At idle, the fan was still audible, but it was fairly quiet. While running the stress test and while gaming, the total system volumes don't change much, and they were only just behind the full fan speed. Going to full fan speed didn't really change the temperatures, as it was basically already close to maxing out anyway, and it was fairly loud. Great, so how does this performance boost actually translate to games and practical applications? I've used Cinebench to just quickly show the differences in CPU performance. Again, as mentioned earlier, the undervolt removed power limit throttling. The CPU wasn't actually thermal throttling with the CPU only workload. As undervolting makes the CPU use less power, it removed the power limit throttling that was taking place, thereby improving performance. I've just tested a small handful of games with and without the -0.150 volt CPU undervolt applied with 4.3 GHz on all 6 cores. In Rise of the Tomb Raider, with the built-in benchmark, we're seeing approximately a 4.5% improvement while undervolting compared against running at default. As expected, the lower settings show a better result. PUBG shows a similar result, almost no difference at higher setting levels with a small boost at lower settings. Dota 2 is behaving the same way. The results are almost the same here in all but the lowest setting levels. Ghost Recon with the built-in benchmark is once again showing us the same results, except with better 1% lows this time. For a synthetic benchmark, I've used the Heaven benchmark from Unigine, and again, fairly similar results. As shown, the improvement by undervolting the CPU does seem to translate to slightly better gaming performance, nothing spectacular, though it depends on the game. As expected, we tend to see a larger boost in performance at the lower setting levels. Which makes sense, as with lower graphical settings you're more likely to be CPU limited as there's less work for the GPU to actually do. Whereas at the higher setting levels the GPU is able to stretch its legs so the gap closes a bit more. Realistically, with the high-end hardware in the Aorus X5 you'll probably be gaming at higher setting levels. So even without undervolting it's performing pretty well, but this may depend on the game. Although we saw some clock speed differences under a full stress test, the fact is most games don't fully max out both the CPU and GPU to cause this behavior. It does run loud and warm, but as we've seen it still runs great in games. You could always put on some headphones if the fan noise is too much for you. These differences in performance shown aren't hard and fast rules. Temperatures will vary between laptops depending on factors such as how well paste has been applied and even the silicon lottery. This basically means each CPU or GPU probably has different limits with regards to the amount of voltage required to run. So just using my numbers with your own laptop probably isn't a good idea, the results will vary. But if you're experiencing thermal throttling, then attempting undervolting could give you a performance improvement as we've seen here. Replacing the thermal paste is another option to try and improve this issue, but unfortunately this isn't something I can do with the review unit for a number of reasons. Generally, a company won't really want you to tamper with the laptop as it needs to work in the same way for the next person to receive it. If I go ahead and replace the stock thermal paste, I can't really put the old paste back. So the next reviewer would experience something different from what you'd actually see with the product and report incorrect results. Undervolting on the other hand isn't physically intrusive, and as we've seen it did improve the performance in this particular unit. Granted, the temperatures didn't really change much, we were able to get some more performance out of it. Using a cooling pad could possibly help too, but I'm hoping to investigate that more in a future video. I'd be interested in hearing your results with undervolting, and how much of an improvement you've seen down in the comments. And leave a like if you found the information useful. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for future tech videos like this one.